Welcome back to Off Record On Point, where we always deep dive into workplace culture and always with the industry's leading minds. Joining us today is one of those, and it is Ed Steer, CEO of Sphere Digital Recruitment. And today we're actually going to go undercover and find out the secret to landing a lasting career. I'm Julia Linehan, as always, your host, and I'm founder of and CEO of The Digital Voice.
And I'm Kasey Long, as usual. You can take a look at the description of this episode for a list of resources and topics to help you out.
So that's Kasey and I. We're here to host, would be the hostesses with the mostest, but we're actually joined. The man of the show is Ed Steer. Welcome, Ed. Thrilled to have you on the show.
Welcome, Ed. Hello.
Thank you for having me. And for the drawing you did of me as well. It took off 10 years and 2 stone.
We aim to please. You'll just be carrying that round with you. This is what I look like, and we're going to see it pop up.
That's Rowan. She does an amazing job.
Big shout out to Rowan. Oh, she's so good. So, Ed, this is quite interesting because it's a bit tables a turn, because the Digital Voice, we're obviously very proud supporters and partners of your own podcast, Life in Digital. So we're actually, but I love the fact that now we get you on here. So it's shifting the tables. And I think there's never been a more important time to talk about navigating both a difficult market, but really talking about the truth, advice, no frills. Say it as it is. And I think this will really help so many people. So if I can, I just want to start with one thing that's really key to mind: redundancies. We're seeing hiring shifts. We're seeing patterns within the economy. Right now, where does the land lie, I suppose, for careers?
Yeah, it's I think it's certainly better than it was Q3, Q4, Q1 this year. And I think it's hard to say because the redundancies have been, first of all, absolutely brutal and very indiscriminate, and they've also come in waves. So, and different companies have made redundancies at different times. So it has felt like they have been ongoing for a long period. And whilst they have, I do think it's settling. Our experience of redundancies were from June last year, we really started to hear different noises from the market. It obviously been so overheated, and I think post-Can, we could see that the tables were turning from a hiring point of view. And then actually in our US office, I was in our American office, and the layoffs sort of hit America first. And we were like, from last June, a bit nervous. And then I'm sure I can say this, our biggest customer by spend is Group M, who make, literally hundreds of hires a year through us. Yeah. And
shout out to Group M.
Yeah, absolutely. And they went on pause externally last year. Around June, yet we are now seeing Group M briefs again on perm. We'd start, freelance actually, there's always space for contractors. It tends to be one of those things that people can get signed off. But so we are seeing some really positive signs of kind of green shoots of recovery from our kind of media heartlands. In terms of redundancies, I do think, I think they're less, and I also think they're still happening. And I think that's really down to, it's actually on a very business by business basis. Some businesses tried to tough it out for longer and are now restructuring. Others restructured earlier and are growing again. Others have had to go through several rounds of restructures. So what we're speaking to our team about is approaching the market without assumptions and listening to our customers, and not thinking that because one organisation is doing something, another's doing the same thing. And I think that's why it's so messy, because I can pick up the phone and an organisation will say, we're not hiring, we're making layoffs. And I can think in my job, shit, that's really, that's first of all, really unfortunate for people in that organisation. And secondly, as a staffing firm, that's a problem. And then I can pick up the phone to another organisation doing a similar thing who are like, we've got so much headcount, we can't find the people, can you help? So it's a really unpredictable world still.
It's interesting, Ed, that you say there's a lot of inconsistencies and no one business is the same. But I'm going to say a lot of the larger scale businesses in our sector, naming no names, were the ones that hired big and fired big, it felt like. And I felt that at no point it was business decisions, but then they should have made better business decisions at the point of hiring. They shouldn't have expanded without knowing what was going to be the implications and knowing what and being ready for those. We see. So how much were they at fault for doing that, and how much did that then make the industry, I'm going to use a swear word here, shit up the industry, really, because it made everybody very jittery.
That was the problem. I think with all the redundancies and the layoffs, you really have to separate out big tech from the rest, and that remains the same. And that did cause all the problems. I mean, I don't have the stats to hand, but if you look at the headcount at Amazon, at Meta, at Microsoft, naming names, so their headcount is still much bigger than 2021 or pre-COVID, right? So there also needs to be context around how many jobs are being supported in tech, because the industry is supporting significantly more jobs than it supported pre this period. That nonetheless is not, it doesn't soften the blow of how many layoffs were made. They were just relentless. So a lot of organisations went through an insane overheated hiring round, and my view of the reason for that was money was too easy to come by through COVID. Furlough was amazing and important for businesses. Loans were given to organisations of any size which were required no security, and banks printed money essentially, which created a massively overheated economy. And in the tech world, everyone was at home spending money online, and digital was always in growth mode anyway. So there were some really reckless decisions made, and the hiring was just insane. And it's funny because, I jokingly said in the board meeting, I will regret saying this, but we were saying in board meetings, we really need the market to cool down 30%. I was so scared of my phone ringing because it would be customers who we know not saying, can you help with these roles? It's like,
I appreciate your word that you used there, which is reckless, because in a way, I think that is the standout message that we felt. And I felt actually, and I'm going to give a bit of kudos to our own, we look after adtech, we specialise in adtech, I live and breathe adtech and have done for years. I felt like adtech was holding its own in that. I didn't feel like I think they've held their nerve. Am I right?
AdTech's been really robust, and interestingly, we would expect AdTech. I mean, AdTech is our heartland. We are a technology vendor. We work with technology vendors, AdTech, martech, and SaaS. Yeah, AdTech is our heartland. It's where I know. It's where I've been for. I remember watching you do a presentation on RTB actually, Julia, before I set Sphere up at a New Media Age event way back in the day. So the AdTech is really what
it's going back. So
what I know and love. Or best. But AdTech's been really robust, and there's really cool technology, and I think it really seemed to re-find its feet in COVID. And I think there was creativity in tech, sustainability in tech, viewability. There's been these really awesome themes emerging. We actually found the hardest years for us with AdTech as a real period of regression, or it being a tough market for us as recruiters, was the GDPR period really rocked the boat, and there was a period of IPOs that potentially didn't go to plan. And so actually it was kind of 2017, 2018 we found AdTech quite sticky, and then it kind of normalized. I mean, it absolutely exploded through COVID, but no, it's been really robust.
So apart from AdTech, then, is that an area that you're still seeing hiring a lot, or are there any other areas that you really feel like you're seeing the biggest growth in at the moment?
Yeah, so hot sectors, the influencer marketing space is really hot.
Ooh, nice.
When paid search launched, you had paid search only agencies, and you still do have paid search only agencies. And when programmatic launched, that was a new channel. And influencer marketing has obviously been around for a while now, but there's influencer content and social as a channel. There are agencies in that space who are doubling in headcount at the moment right now.
Well, that's exciting,
and they're cool companies actually, because they're kind of agencies who are tech enabled. So there's some interesting roles there,
aren't they just?
And then
Nicole, who's our social media lead, is also an influencer. And this morning we were on a team call, and she's like, "No, we are cool because we've just relaunched our website." And I was like, "Right, if an influencer who's got tens of thousands of followers says that, I'm going to believe it. We are cool." So you heard it here now.
You most certainly are. I can verify. So we're seeing that across and across client side as well. So roles in content marketing, content strategy. Absolutely. That's definitely a hot sector across kind of the media and marketing worlds that we operate in.
And is that kind of in the US and the UK? I'm only asking selfishly because it's interesting for me to hear the differences of what's going on at home versus what's going on here.
Good question. I can definitely tell you. So I would not be able to answer that with transparency. And the reason for that is in the US, we've only launched in AdTech, sales and customer success. Very recently started to work with agencies for biddable media, paid search, social, SEO and programmatic. So we're pretty strategic as a company at being very focused. So yeah, we haven't launched in that space yet, so I don't know the answer. I hope it's yes. I would suspect it is.
Exciting though. Keep us posted, Ed. That'll be on the next episode.
US layoffs and US hiring landscape tougher than the UK, which is conversely not what you'd read in the media, but it was but just the scale of the country, the volume of talent from a layoff point of view is really it made a much more challenging situation in the US. And then in the US as well, there's this situation where remote's much more common. I know remote working is very common in the US, but the US is like massive. So remote was very common, but you've got tech vendors now saying we need our sellers to be not in the office, but local to the city. And a lot of sellers from New York move to Florida, so there's a real. It's a really tough market, America.
We felt that very keenly, didn't we? Because we were talking about it, because we're obviously 100% remote. We got 30 people and counting all over the globe, really. No, that's because we are now global, and we recently launched in the US. We're about to launch in APAC. We've got people all the ground in Europe, but even our core team aren't based, like, we're not, I think there's only 2 people that live in London. And I always think I'm really feel sorry for those that, Kasey probably know better than me, but like San Francisco, I can only imagine what the house prices are. So you made that decision during COVID, move out, because it was
one of the most expensive in America. Yeah.
Told you're never going to have to come back into an office. But yeah, so you're able to buy a bigger house, better quality of life, and then you're told you'll lose your job unless you get your ass back into the office. Really, seriously, what the fudge happened to this? We look after our teams, we look after their. It's really bad. I really feel for those people. It must be terrible.
Me too. And look, as recruitment companies, we're on the receiving end of this. Job searching is supply and demand, and there was just such a balance of power, and the pendulum swung, and it didn't become about keeping our people, it came about what do we want, and happy to push for churn. It's like the people who don't come back, that's the percent that leave. And then what was actually really challenging in America, not spending too long on it, because I know there's loads of other exciting topics for today, but how visas work in the States. They're attached to jobs, and you've got 90 days. So what was actually very tough, we were speaking to candidates who have lived in the States, have families in the States, kids in schools in the States, have been there for a very long time, but without green cards, and then they lost their jobs. Like, if I don't get a job in 90 days, myself and my family have to leave the country. So yeah, it was
we did know a few actually that happened to, and I think it's interesting you say about that pendulum, from the Great Resignation and all of that, in which it felt. It kind of a little bit went too far, because you also don't want people to be so arrogant that they're actually not good at their job, and people need to. It's that fine balance of really valuing what you've got from an employee as well. But I want to ask, because given the pendulum has swung, how does a job seeker actually stand out in a very crowded market? You're right at the cold face of it. What advice would you give?
So to stand out, I think I would have a really simple CV that just says who you are and what you do. But I think it's about how you approach your search. So if you're out of work, and I can only imagine how relentless this is, and I know how, because we speak to people, I think it becomes your full-time job. And I think you need to have a strategy. So my strategy would be identify the companies I want to work with, identify the hiring managers who could hire somebody like me, and then just to relentlessly hit up those hiring managers. Because if you're applying for jobs on LinkedIn, you're going to see so many applications. And internal talent teams are actually very busy. And one of the hard things for internal talent teams is they've got so many applications. How do they get through them all? And what if everyone's a good candidate? Yeah. So it's
you
almost
can't,
just like,
I guess, the answer.
So they just get to what we've got pipeline. We've got pipeline job off my list. We've got pipeline job off my list. So because they are actually, a lot of those companies making lots of hires still. So I think that, apply via LinkedIn, apply via the company's website, but really go direct to the hiring managers, go to them even if they're not hiring.
Personal outreach.
Yeah, personal outreach, and with consistency. And this is who I am. This is what I do. I'd love to be part of your team for these reasons. Super, super, super simple. So definitely not long content either. People don't generally love reading lots of content, whether that's on email or on LinkedIn. So I think really simple bullet points: who I am, what I want to do, why I'd like to talk to you, and try and hit up the decision makers. Basically, like how we do business development.
You talk about internal teams. I can't imagine, it must genuinely be quite overwhelming at times for certain roles. Are there any employers that you're seeing that are getting it right, and what are they doing? And what sort of do's and don'ts would you give to those that are hiring right now and are seeing that, busyness?
Well, first of all, I really believe the very best companies don't say, because the market's different, we're going to behave differently and then treat people with less respect. So I think the very best companies say, this is our hiring process, and not what we have seen, which is really shitty, is a lot of companies saying, well, because there's lots of candidates, we're just going to offer people less, or we're going to and conversing to that.
Oh,
I've heard this, Ed.
gosh.
That we had an offer out as a verbal offer, which was then changed to being less, and that's happened fairly regularly. And that is really just companies going, we can pay less today.
So disappointing.
Great hiring processes should be the same irrespective of the market. You should identify who you need, why you need them based on their skill set, and you should run a process which is fair and equal, where candidates have an opportunity to be heard, understand the role, and be treated with respect. So lots of companies are still doing that. But I think the challenges that organisations have faced, and it is a challenge for them, is there is lots and lots and lots of applications. So what do they do?
I've got two things that I find within this, what we're talking about here. So one of them is, I'm very keen to know, we talked about processes. I would love you to steer people on what they should throw out when it comes to that process. And I'll give mine. I absolutely detest the more than 3 interviews. I actually detest more than 2. I honestly believe, and for every one of the 30 people at the Digital Voice, I knew within the first 15 seconds that they were going to be mine. 12 seconds for Camellia. But you know what I mean? And or the second point is for candidates. I believe in, don't forget, LinkedIn is your shop front. You've got to sell it first, and you need to be going in and you need to be liking, posting, commenting. When you're applying for those jobs, you must go through that. You must really go over and above and stand out. But I want to come on back to that, because I think that's important. I think we can give some guidance on some things that I look for, and I'd love to see what you look for as well. And I think we're going to even come in my quick fire round, although it's putting you on the spot. But can I come back to that? What would you chuck out? Chuck out now in an employer's recruitment process.
This is just specific to working with a recruitment company, so I have to start that. Reviewing CVs, complete waste of time. Why see a CV when someone's interviewed someone and says this person's suitable for the job? So the amount of time spent reviewing CVs is completely wasted. And then scheduling around interviews in most companies is completely ridiculous. So a good recruitment process looks like this. I trust my internal recruiter, or I trust my external recruiter, or I trust both. And on this day, between these hours, I'd like to see 5 people who are great for this job. And you let your recruitment team decide who those 5 people are. You meet those 5 people, and then you have an interview with the people who you really like, and you make a hire. Because there's no reason to go beyond that. So bad habits that really frustrate us, which we try and iron out, is I've only seen 1 person, so I need to see 3 more people to benchmark. Well, why? You can benchmark somebody against your values as an organisation and the people in the team. So there's just some things that you do, which are really box ticky, that actually make for really crap processes.
Gosh, Ed, it's almost like you founded a recruitment agency. You make it sound so nice.
It's like he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
I actually haven't recruited for a job for about 8 years, and I wish I did. But when I did, and I was able to have clients who trusted me, how I worked was literally, I know what I'm looking for, you trust me, so tell me when you're free this week and I will put brilliant people in your diary, and you'll never have to speak to another recruiter or do anything apart from rock up to meeting and interview someone who you're going to hire. Yeah. So there's just lots of unnecessary box ticking.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Having said all of that, you then need to set out what is important. So as an example, if you are working with an external partner or an internal partner, whilst I might say don't look at CVs, I would say the shortlist needs to be diverse and representative. I would say that, you're trusting the recruiter internally and externally can show their workings. This is who we've reached out to. This is who's reached out to us. This is why we're presenting these people. If it takes longer to get to a point where the shortlist is representative absolutely that's a must have on every shortlist.
I'm going to ask something really and put you on the spot here. When I look for taking on team members for into the digital voice, the one standout thing has to be energy. What's the one standout value you see most often that people are looking for? And you may not be able to give me one, but could you give me one?
That really varies from company to company, but companies definitely have values they look for.
It probably does. That was a tough question for me to ask.
It's also a data scientist versus an enterprise seller.
Yeah.
There's
That's impossible.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, because we're a PR agency. We need energy.
yeah.
Bring the vibe.
Kasey, what would you look for? Kasey, what do you look for in your team? What's the one word that goes bang for you?
Yeah, I think specifically for me and Ava, I mean, I love that every day on my team, we do a vibe check in the morning where it's like, rattle it off, 3 words, how are you feeling? Like even that in an interview, describe your vibe in 3 words. And if it kind of lines up, like I bet like what you said, Ed, with your values and, how you want to go into each day, ideally, for me personally, I guess, you want to feel upbeat, you want to feel organized, you want to feel, prepared or relaxed or whatever it is. When they align, that's kind of ideally what you want, isn't it?
So you guys culturally seem very similar to Sphere. So what I would translate that to is
that's why we work so well with you.
Yeah, we really want individualism because we want to hire individuals. Because it's very important to have different people in the business. But the common theme for us, whilst we really want to celebrate individuality, we have to have people who want to be part of something which is bigger than themselves. So being an individual is great, but you have to want to be part of something.
You touched a little bit on diversity, Ed, and I'm just curious if you feel like you're seeing that be a big value the way that it should be, or has there been a shift post-pandemic where that's, obviously even more important and sticking the way that it should be now?
It depends on the business. So to some businesses, it is absolutely top priority under any situation. And
love to hear that.
It just doesn't change. So in the times where they couldn't make any hires because everyone was hiring, some organizations said, we know this is going to take us ages. We know we're not going to be able to hire, but we have to achieve these. This is the most important thing to us.
Yeah.
And other companies, it is absolutely just my most hated thing in the world. Basically, marketing, corporate
box ticking,
how we look, not what we really are. And there's loads of that, which does my head in. So
throw that away.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think some companies really it is very, very, very important, and it's part of their DNA, and others it's not, and it's as simple as that. And I wouldn't even go as big to say about big companies or small companies. Big companies, it's more of a corporate agenda. Small companies, it's more of this means a lot to us as an organisation.
I'm going to put a different approach on the table because I have a different view on this. All we have to do is open our doors to everybody and anybody of any culture, religion, race, sexual orientation, anything. Open the doors to that. The right people are still the right people irrespective of that. And I'll stand by that in the fact that I'm very, very proud that the digital voice is ridiculously diverse, although we do have not far too many women. We have a lot of women, but that's not because by design, they're just the right people. And I can't put enough weight on that. But what I always believe in is you never close the door to somebody because of anything other than what they do. But I equally won't be forced into a oh my God, a box ticking exercise, because I think that's where it goes terribly wrong. And I really would love people to just be inclusive, have your open-mindedness, but you still have to find the people that align with your values and who are right for the job. And I then believe, and mine's proof in the pudding, the digital voice it's so diverse, which just shows it by opening the doors. We got all the people that we believe are the right people for those roles. And I'm very proud that they happen to be diverse, which shows everybody can achieve anything they want to.
Hooray! I love that.
Yeah. Woo! I'm doing a little dance for anybody on the podcast.
Yeah, so we get asked this a lot by our customers. So when it comes to the media industry, so talk about medias, agencies, tech vendors, publishers in particular, it's a mid to senior level. The challenge is the industry has there's an available pool of talent. Okay, so that's a real challenge. You can't you have to accept where we are today in terms of how diverse the look of the talent pools are. So that creates a challenge. So I think future talent and how we hire at a junior level for any organisation or any big organisation is a really important starting point to make sure that at the beginning of an organisation where people are entering it's absolutely representative. And if that company is genuinely inclusive because they're different things, then people move through that company based on their ability, not on biases. But that takes time to play through.
Yeah, just about that authenticity.
I'll say as well though, because we're friends with. I want to shout out our friends at DigiRise, Brixton Finishing School.
Lollipop mentoring.
If you support those groups that are really driving for new talent to have opening the doors, all that it's up once they're there, they just want a chance to get through the door. So I really encourage the industry to support those groups that are bringing those talents to the door, and then simply welcome them in. And after that, it's up to them to do the rest. It's up to them to thrive.
So we always have organisations, if you want to hire differently, if you want us to go and find people who don't work in digital media, but who could be good to transfer into digital media from other industries, we'll go and do that. But we need time and space to do it, which isn't in an environment which is actually about who's the fastest, because recruitment, although we try and make it not like that, it can be. So you really see I think if companies really want to go and look for different talent, they need to behave differently, because actually what often happens, and we've been burnt by this, is we go and do that and then someone hires their mate. So it's just like, well, what's the point of us going and creating a short list?
Or equally, even worse than that, Ed, is the throwing mud at a wall and see what sticks kind of mentality, and that's again what we're trying to get away from. Exactly. And I'm very, very proud. I see firsthand, by the way, what you do, and there's also other really strong recruitment companies that have really placed a lot on values and ethics, and I hope that I see it, and I want it to be driving that in the industry. I'm aware of time, and I'm not letting you get away with this. Kasey, what do you think we should do now? Should we go to the quick fire round?
It is time for the feared, the fabled, the infamous quick fire round.
These questions for Ed are based on the actual silly interview questions that we used to ask, and I was asked when I started out my career in 1995. They are idiotic, and I do hope the industry's moved on. But for the purposes of today, for Kasey, mine, for all of our digital voice audience, we wanted to put Ed on the spot and ask him the most insane questions that have been asked at interviews. So, Ed, are you ready? Are you set?
Far away.
Okay, now listen, it's very important you answer the first thing that comes into your mind. It's a quick fire round. It's a quick fire answer. Okay.
I'm scared you're going to come to me now to embrace myself.
I know. I'm totally coming to you, Kasey, and I know the exact one I'm going to you on, so you should have kept your mouth shut.
Oh, no.
Let's do it. Right. If you could be stuck on a hot air balloon with a famous person for 2 hours, who would it be?
So Alex Ferguson, I'm a huge Man U fan. Love the way he led, and would be fascinated to have that time with him. And good stories too, I'm sure, from those years.
Brilliant. What would your arch nemesis say about you?
That I'm an amazing person to work with and a bloody horrible person to compete against.
Oh, nicely done. So this would be one that we'd have had in a sales interview. Pick an item on your desk and sell it to us.
Okay, I've just plonked myself down somewhere really random because my internet wasn't working. So I've got some really strange stuff on a table in my kitchen. So Kasey and Jules, who in the room here likes animals?
Oh, I love animals, Ed.
I'm allergic to them. Sell to Kasey.
Okay, well that's pretty cool. So I've actually got an animal that both of you can have. Kasey, I think when you're working from home looking after a dog, it's probably quite a hard thing to do if you want to stay focused. But we have this lovely puppy here, which is actually gives you the dog effect. So you get to spend some time with the dog and have a dog experience. It's actually a toy. So Jules, you can both buy this because it's also not an actual dog. So as someone who's allergic to dogs,
allergy-free.
It's allergy-free. It's good for you too.
Give that man a clap.
Do you know what? I'm dropping Ange off at a neighbor's house later today. You've just sold me, Ed.
You did that. Do you know what? That's really good. We used to get told, here's a pen, sell it. And we were trained in doing it. And it's just insane. It's a technique, if anyone ever looks up, Dipita or Aida, it's brilliant behind it. Well done, Ed. Putting you on the spot there, you blew that away. Staying in the animal theme, what animal would you be?
Oh, bloody hell. Oh, well, that's a hard one to actually really like those different animals.
And why?
I've got 3 animals in my head. In the weekends, I'd like to be an eagle so I can kind of like soar around and be free, because that's the weekends.
Oh,
And at work,
Love.
I'd either be like a tiger if I've got to be in charge. I'd be a fox if I need to be considered and watching the room. And then I'd be like a sloth or something, really just calm and just being able to.
I've never known
have
anyone choose three. Kasey, what's your animal? If you're an animal, what would you be?
My animal's probably a slim pug. 24/7. I'm putting slim in there just because I don't like the connotation of a pug immediately being a little too chunky or having some extra neck rolls. But in general,
A slim pug.
the ability to, like take on a lot of cuddles and a lot of love and be a little bit weird and a little bit quirky.
That is so cute. I'm so glad I came to you on that question. I might come to you another you don't know. Look, coming to you now. Where do you? This is a question you get asked in interviews. So let's ask it to Ed. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Running Sphere.
Nice.
And with a different business in terms of scale and services, and with the same businesses in terms of people and values.
Awesome.
And being 5 years older.
Perfect. I hope you asked her, because Sphere will be going strong. Okay, if you had to sell Sphere in 6 words or less, what would you say?
Easy to deal with and results.
Lovely. And final question, Ed, why should we hire you?
Oof.
Because I would really, I'm a boy, so I could add to I could bring some male energy to the room. I would help you to create a great future journey for the company, be very committed to making it happen and have some fun along the way.
Oh, Ed.
I love it. You're hired.
Can we make Ed an honorary member of the Digital Voice? That's a wrap. That is your quick fire. Thank you for being so brilliant, Ed. And so it's such a playing ball with that. Thank you.
Awesome. And on that note, that brings us to the end of another episode of Off Record On Point. For all of you listening, you can find out where to keep up with Ed in the description or on our, as Julie mentioned, newly launched website, thedigitalvoice.co.uk. As well as you find a whole load of useful resources to keep the conversation going. You'll also find us, the Digital Voice, as sponsors on Ed's own podcast, Life in Digital. Highly encourage you to listen. It's second best only by Off Record On Point. So thank you so much. Thank you, Ed.
Have a quick fire round. Thank you so much, Kasey, and thank you, Ed.
Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Off Record On Point, the Digital Voice podcast unzipped. I'm Julia Linehan.
And I'm Kasey Long. Enjoy the conversation? Reach out and let us know by rating and reviewing on your favorite podcast platform. And be sure to follow to never miss an episode.
You can stay connected with us at thedigitalvoice.co.uk and across all social platforms. Just look out for The Digital Voice.
Join us again next time for another undercover industry deep dive. All off record, all on point.